The Atlanta Braves pick up the right-handed bat they needed in Lane Thomas, but they'll need to do more than that to overcome the Los Angeles Dodgers, who added to a star-studded rotation with the trade for Tarik Skubal.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this MLB season. On today's episode, we're going to talk about a great weekend against the Washington Nationals where the Braves get a 4-game sweep led by the pitching staff. We're also going to talk about some recent trades, one for Lane Thomas for the Braves and the Dodgers acquiring Tarik Skubal and what that means for the Braves for the rest of this season and what it possibly means for the upcoming CBA. So a lot to get to on today's episode of a Locked On Braves. Well, let's start with the trade for Lane Thomas that the Atlanta Braves made on Saturday night. Lane Thomas and Bailey Falter for Carter Holton and Lucas Braun. And I think that's a pretty good return for the Royals in exchange for Lane Thomas, who is a short side platoon player, as a right-hander facing a lefty, although with all the lefties the Braves face, it might not be that much of a short side platoon, but Thomas is a rental, and the Braves, take on Falter's money. We'll talk about that in a second. I think Braun is probably a 5th, 6th starter. His ceiling's probably a, 4th, 5th starter, but I do think he is a big leaguer. I think he'll make some big league starts. And Carter Holton, injured, so he's missed a lot of time, but I think somebody that has the potential to be a back-end starter or perhaps a lefty reliever. But I would be shocked if either of these guys turn around to be players the Braves regret trading. I mean, these are obvious guys you're okay parting with that should not come back and hurt you. Famous last words. But I do think that's a pretty good return for the Royals. Like I said, for basically a rental player, and you're just getting rid of somebody off your 40-man roster and Bailey Falter. So you look at why the Braves went out and made this move. And obviously we talked about Lane Thomas a couple of times on here. I thought he made sense for the Atlanta Braves. There are some other right-handed bats that I liked more. I liked Spencer Steer before he got injured. I like Taylor Ward because of the on-base ability. But Lane Thomas was certainly in that mix. Joe Adell's another one we talked about. But those are probably the 4 right-handed bats, that I thought really fit with the Braves. And I think Lane Thomas certainly does that. I think he fits with what the Braves needed. You look at the team's numbers versus left-handed pitching this year. As a team, the Braves ranked 16th in WRC plus against right-handed pitchers. And you look at the numbers versus lefty for Lane Thomas this year, he is hitting .263 with a 125 WRC plus, a 15% walk rate, 22% strikeout rate is a little bit high for where it's been for him for his career, but that's a 370 on-base percentage against left-handed pitching and an 800 OPS. 167 ISO, power is down a little bit as well, but you look at his career marks against left-handed pitching, 288 average, 361 on base, 489 slug. That's why I said the power is down a little bit against lefties this year. A 10% walk rate, a 20% strikeout rate, an 850 OPS. It's a career 201 ISO. So again, maybe power is just declining overall, but perhaps you see that come back a little bit. A 133 WRC plus for Lane Thomas in his career against left-handed pitching. This is a guy that throughout has been able to handle lefties. You look at WRC plus for the Braves out of their left fielders this year. They're actually 5th in F4 out of the left field position this year, but a lot of that is because of Dubon's defense. But you look at just WRC plus, which measures just the offensive side of things. They are 20th in that regard with a 92 WRC plus, which means they haven't been getting much offense from that position. So Lane Thomas definitely helps with that in combination with Mike Yastrzemski, who's swinging the bat here better lately. And you also look at the defense and speed of Lane Thomas. Now, the metrics are pretty poor on him in terms of range and in the outfield, but he does have a very strong arm and he has elite speed. He stole 32 bases back in 2024. He has 7 so far this year. So if he does end up placing Eli White, which we'll talk about here in a second, you also get somebody who could still be a great pinch runner off the bench. So who does he replace? I think he ultimately replaces Eli White. You look at it right now, there are 4 players on this roster who can be replaced, not counting Joey Bart, who we know Sean Murphy will come in and take his spot here pretty soon. But you can replace Jim Jarvis, you can replace Dom Smith, Jorge Mateo, or Eli White. Nobody else on this roster is getting taken off. Your potentially adding 2 players in Thomas and Kim here soon. We'll see what happens with Ha-Seong Kim. You likely want to keep Dom as another lefty off the bench. Mateo and White are both great, pinch run options. But like I said, with Lane Thomas and his speed, he kind of negates that. So you don't necessarily lose that. Kim probably brings the least value and should either be traded or released. But again, we'll see what the Braves are going to do there, if they're willing to eat that money or if they can somehow include him in a trade where you're swapping a bad contract. Maybe the Braves are getting something that can be useful to them. I think people would riot if you option Jim Jarvis, but he does have options, and he's the one guy that you can move without potentially losing them. I think you'd be pretty safe if you had to push Mateo through waivers, but that is a risk. And Mateo obviously has been, pretty valuable for the Braves in spots this year. Now, also with the platoon of Yastrzemski and Thomas in left field, you could make Dubon the primary shortstop if you wanted to either send Jarvis back down or let Kim go, keep Mateo on the roster, and you could do a platoon situation at shortstop and then move Dubon around in other spots, third base. All of that to say, I do think it's Eli White that gets the boot whenever Thomas is added. Note, though, he is not reporting until Tuesday. The Braves also have, at this point, I think it's like 36 hours before they make a decision on Ha-Seong Kim and what they're going to do with him. So there's going to be a lot of obviously roster movement over the next day or so with the trade deadline, and then what they're going to do with when they officially add Lane Thomas and what they do with Ha-Seong Kim. But I do think you could potentially replace Lane Thomas or replace Eli White with Lane Thomas. I hate that. I do like Eli on the roster. If you can figure it out some way to keep both guys, great. But somebody's got to go. I mean, that's the nature of when you add players at the trade deadline. Somebody that you like that's had some moments for you is going to have to go. I think Kim should be the one to go. But I think Eli White could be next on the chopping block, because I think you want to keep Jim Jarvis. Even if Dubon is going to play a lot of shortstop for you, keeping Jim Jarvis at this point in the season, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense to send Jarvis down just so that he gets everyday reps. I think he's proven enough to show that he has value here at the big league level, but very interested to see what the Braves are going to do with the roster over the next couple of days. Now, the other part of this is Bailey Falter. Not really sure why he's in this deal. Only thing I can figure is that the Royals needed the Braves to take on some money in the deal. It's not like he's owed a little over $3 million this year. So the Braves probably, taking on about $1 million in this deal, along with obviously what Lane Thomas is owed. Falter's been pretty awful this season. In his last 2 starts in the minors, he's only allowed 1 earned run on 5 hits, but he's walked 8 and struck out 8. And lefties have a higher OPS against him in his career. So if you had some visions of maybe him coming up being a lefty specialist guy out of the bullpen, I don't think that's really an option either. So I think he was just added in this deal for KC to help save a few bucks. But I like the Lane Thomas move. Again, I talked about him a couple of times on here. Thought he made some sense for the Braves. And I think this potentially helps you in other areas now. With Yastrzemski swinging a good bat against righties, you get Lane Thomas in there to help out against lefties. So you have left field situated. And then that allows you to move Dubon around like you wanted to, how you were supposed to at the beginning of the year. Let him play some shortstops, especially against a left-handed starter. Let him get some starts at third base as well. So I really do like this move, and I think it helps you in 3 areas. I think it helps you in left. I think it helps you at short, and I think it helps you at third base. So a really good move here by the Atlanta Braves, but they'll need to do more than that. Next, we will take a look at the Tarik Skubal move and other trades happening around Major League Baseball and what AA still has left to get done, as we're about 24 hours before the trade deadline. We'll get into that here next. A big thank you to our friends at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back-to-school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, and suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. Like when you look at the school supply list and wonder if you're shopping for one child or opening a small office supply store. I didn't realize first grade required this much inventory. Shopping like this can get out of control control if you're not careful. Or when it's 9 p.m. the night before school starts and somebody suddenly remembers they need folders, notebooks, markers, and apparently 12 other things that nobody mentioned until right now. Nothing gets the heart rate up quite like emergency school shopping. And I'm convinced that Prime's Deliver Tomorrow Before 7 a.m. feature was created exclusively for parents in this moment. So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. So Braves fans didn't get to enjoy the Lane Thomas news for very long, because later on Saturday night, news broke that the Dodgers were acquiring Tarik Skubal. Now, doesn't come as much of a surprise. I don't know that there were odds out there on our partners at FanDuel, but I would imagine if there were, the odds would have been pretty high that the Dodgers were the team that was going to get Tarik Skubal. Frustrating from just a Brave standpoint. I knew it was very unlikely the Braves were going to give up what it would take to get Skubal, but I do still believe that he was the one move you could have made that put you on par with the Dodgers, that gave you a legitimate best chance possible of winning the World Series. Not saying they still can, it is baseball, but I thought that gave them the best chance to win the World Series. And now it's a bit deflating as a baseball fan. And we know that we're likely going to miss some games next year. There's going to be a lockout. Like Lindsay, I'm hopeful that the season does start on time, or at least it won't be delayed that long, but it's just not fair. And it's not. And I understand the arguments that other teams could have given a similar package. And what the Dodgers gave up, they gave up 2 top 100 prospects. Now there's some debate that River Ryan's actually a top 100 prospect. He's nearly as old as I am. It was a pretty decent haul. I think comparatively for the Atlanta Braves, you would have had to give up either Eric Hartman or Tate Southesine. That would have been the comparison to Zaire Hope. And then you would have to given up maybe an Owen Murphy and a Garrett Bauman. 2 pretty solid prospects. Another one kind of a top 10, another one kind of a top 20 in your system. So it would have been an expensive deal. I would have been okay with it. I know a lot of people wouldn't have been. But like I said, I think it's the one move you could have made as a Brave for the Braves that gives you the best shot. It pairs a Sale and a Skubal that gives you a chance in any series that you play in. But it's not to be. Of course, the Dodgers get them. And I think Derek Gold on social media responding to another tweet where at the end of it, they said this is a deal you absolutely do if you're the Dodgers. And Derek Gold, quoted that in his tweet and said, other teams won't pay free market prices, talking about free agent prices. So they are fiercely reluctant to trade young players. Dodgers can trade a Zaire Hope because they'll sign your favorite team, Zaire Hope, as a free agent. They have more hope either way, which is just eloquently written by Derek Gold, who I know used to be a writer for the Cardinals. I don't know if he still is or not, but that's the frustration I think we have as fans, is that, yes, the Dodgers are a well-run organization, and they do a great job identifying talent, acquiring talent. But they also have the ability. They don't have to worry. Like Zaire Hope could go on and be a superstar for the Tigers. Dodgers don't care. That's not going to wreck them because they're just going to sign the top free agents anyway. And that's where the frustration comes in. The Braves, it's taken them so long to build up this farm system. I'm not saying it would completely crush them, but it would hurt. If you traded a Tate Southesine, who perhaps is a future fixture in your lineup, for 2 months of Tarik Skubal, go ahead and say it's 3 months. The Dodgers are making a deep run in October, but that's just too risky of a price for a team like the Braves, who I still think should be a large market team. They are. I mean, they are a large market team. They certainly should be. But other teams can't do that. The Brewers are sitting here saying, we'll trade for Skubal. We'll take on all that money. Like, that was what they offered, is that we'll take Skubal and all the money that is left. Like, and I know there was more to that. Like, they would have to give up some prospects as well. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't have done that, but it's just not a concern for the Dodgers. I gave you what I think were comparable trade packages, what it would take to get it done. And you all said, no way, that's way too risky. You know what the Dodgers don't say? They don't say that's risky. They don't care, because they're just going to sign the best guys in free agency anyway. And again, they do a great job identifying, drafting, all of that to help them be able to do this. But when you're putting together trade packages for the Dodgers and you're saying, oh, I don't know if we can trade Zaire Ho, we might need him in a couple of years, they don't care. That's not a concern for them, because they're just going to sign the top free agent anyway to replace what that player might have been for you. And that's a difference right now between the Dodgers and everybody else in baseball. Is every other team in baseball has to weigh the risk of trading their top prospect to get 2 months of a player, because that could potentially wreck their future. Dodgers don't have that concern. They don't have that worry. And that's the big difference here. And that's what the fight is going to be about come the next CBA. Some other trades that were made, though. The Rays trade for Freddie Peralta. The Mets got 3 prospects. The Rays number 15, 26, and 27th best prospects, according to MLB Pipeline. White Sox traded for Luis Castillo, taking on that money. And the Twins traded for old friend AJ Minter. I know a lot of people thought maybe the Braves might bring Minter back as a left-hander in the bullpen. I was not in on AJ Minter at all. I think he's declining. I think the Braves moved on from him at a good point. But those are some of the bigger trades that have happened over the last couple of days. A lot of talk about Luis Garcia, who was in the series for the Nationals against the Braves, said a couple of times. A lot of talk about him perhaps going to the Yankees, but nothing official there yet. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of trades happening, throughout Sunday night and throughout the day on Monday. I expect a lot of movement here. But what's left to do for the Atlanta Braves? They've taken care of the right-handed bat. That was one of the 4 things that I said I wanted to see the Braves do at the deadline. So you still got 3 other things. You need an SP2. Aren't many of those out there, in my opinion. But get the best pitcher you think that you can get that is available out there. Get an SP3. So in my opinion, you still need 2 starters. Would love for one of them to be an SP2, but you got to get 2 starters of some degree. I still think you want to set up reliever. I know we felt a little bit better about the bullpen after that national series, which we will talk about, and they were fantastic. But not knowing the status of Robert Suarez, I think you got to go out and try to get another setup reliever. I like Luke Weaver myself, if the Mets are willing to deal with us, and I guess the Braves with them. But I think you need to go get another setup reliever. So that's the 3 things for me. Outside of that, if we're getting greedy, I would love to see a left-handed bat upgrade over Dom, perhaps somebody that can also play in the field. And I still would like to see a lefty specialist, assuming that the setup reliever that you potentially get isn't left-handed. So those are the things that I would like to see the Braves do. I think there's 3 things they must do: 2 starters and a setup reliever, and then a couple of additional things that I would like to see them do, and a left-handed bat upgrade over Dominic Smith, and a left-handed specialist for the bullpen. But let me know what you think. What does AA need to do here over the next 24 hours to win this deadline? And you look at some of the weaknesses for the Atlanta Braves. Left field, third base, and shortstop are all near the bottom of the league in WRC+. But as I talked about earlier, fixing left field with Thomas might also help fix shortstop and third base, as it allows you to move Dubon between really those 3 positions, left field, shortstop, and third base, and give you an added boost there. But can't wait to see what AA is going to do. I am hopeful, and I do believe that he will make several moves here as we get closer and closer to the deadline. Just hope that they are the moves that they need to make. But the Braves are coming off a great weekend against the Nationals. The team has done their job coming out of the All-Star break to prove to Alex Anthopoulos that this is a team to spin for. I'm going to tell you how they got it done next. Locked On Braves is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. Matt Olson is on a home run tear right now for the Atlanta Braves, and it's a safe pick to go deep each and every day. As you look at the World Series odds on FanDuel.com, the Dodgers remain heavy favorites after picking up Tarik Skubal at the trade deadline. Chris Sale is right there, though, in the conversation for the NL Cy Young Award. You can see all those odds over at FanDuel.com, and while you're there, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play with a plan for tools and resources to help you play responsibly. So, are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of MLB. The Atlanta Braves got a great series win over the Nationals, a 4-game series sweep. I'll be honest, I was really concerned coming into this series with the Nationals offense being the best in baseball. You're not getting a Chris Sale start in this series. And the way that the Braves offense had looked coming in, they weren't necessarily clicking on all cylinders either. So a great job by them pulling together to get a series win. And for me, it all comes down to the pitching. And the pitching was really, really good. Now, Grant Holmes, 4 2/3 innings. Again, didn't last 5, but kept the team in the game, allowed just 3 runs. Bryce Elder, 6 innings, just 1 earned run allowed. It was only 3 strikeouts, and he did walk 3, but overall did a fantastic job. And that's now 3 really good starts in a row for Bryce Elder. 7 walks in the past 2. I don't love that, but he is going deeper into outings. He's limiting runs. Hopefully we're going to see Bryce Elder get on a bit of a streak here. Martin Perez on Saturday. 7 innings, 1 hit, 2 walks, no earned, 6 strikeouts, thrust into action at the last minute as Ronaldo Lopez got scratched. And I guess that is some news I need to mention here. Ronaldo Lopez going on the injured list. So Martin Perez gets the start on Saturday, gives one of the best pitching performances of the year for the Braves. He carried a no-hitter through 6 innings. He's the unsung hero of the year for the Braves. With the issues that they had in the rotations coming into the season, yes, Chris Sale was great, Bryce Elder was great, but Martin Perez, the way that he pitched early on in the year and really throughout. He's had maybe a 3 or 4 start stretch there where he took a couple of comebackers that I think affected him, went on the injured list there around the All-Star break. But outside of that, he has been tremendous this season for the Atlanta Braves. And that performance on Saturday, just one of the biggest ones of the year. When you consider the situation, getting notified last minute, coming in there, just dominating the best offense in the league. Great stuff from Martin Perez. And then J.R. Ritchie on Sunday. Again, his plans got altered too. He was supposed to start for Gwinnett. This coming from Mark Bowman. J.R. Ritchie said he had just started his pregame start throwing program when he was told to stop in Durham around 6:20 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night. He thought he had been traded. Instead, he was sent to Atlanta, where he allowed 2 runs on 4 innings. Same thing for Martin Perez. Martin Perez said on Saturday when everybody was calling his name, he thought maybe he got traded. So it's that time of year. Everybody's worried whenever their name gets mentioned that maybe they're going to be dealt soon, but that was not the case for JR. But again, to give him a little bit of grace, he was getting ready to pitch for Gwinnett in Durham, got pulled back, sent to Atlanta to start an afternoon game on Sunday. And again, 4 innings, allowed just 2 earned, kept the team in the game. There's a chance in that 4th inning that things could have got really, really ugly, made the pitches that he needed to get out of that jam. But overall, not to be too negative here, I've been disappointed in J.R. Ritchie, mainly because I was higher than most on him. I've always been higher on him than the consensus. And part of that was not that I think he's a top of the rotation guy. I just felt like J.R. Ritchie had the stuff and the ability to come up and just be a solid starter from jump. I said it before the season began that I felt like JR would come up at some point and then he would just be a mainstay in the rotation, but he hasn't been able to make that leap yet. And a lot of that's just because of control and not being able to throw his pitches in the zone nearly enough to be effective. I still believe in the stuff. It's not necessarily going to be a profile that's, gets a lot of swings and misses, but I do think he's somebody that once he's able to have better control in the zone, it's a guy that's going to get a lot of weak contact and be a solid pitcher in the rotation. And so it's just kind of frustrating personally for me, just because I've been higher on him, that he hasn't been able to make that transition yet. And we'll see what happens if he sticks around. The Braves have used 5 options on him at this point. If they send him back down, they can bring him back up, but he has to stay on the team, or they risk losing him if they then try to send him back down for a 6th time. So keep that in mind as well. As far as the offensive side of things, Mike Yastrzemski, a big weekend. 2-run homer on Thursday, didn't play on Friday, then 2 doubles on Saturday, a home run on Sunday. So 4 extra base hits on the weekend. Talk about that at the top. With him getting going now in Lane Thomas, you feel much better about, your left field partners and just that spot in the order, 6, 7, 8, wherever they're going to be batting. Mark Bowman pointed this out on social media that entering Sunday, Yastrzemski had an OPS of 848 against righties since May 12th. And that comes with a 132 WRC plus. It's a 708 OPS and a 96 WRC plus on the season. And that just tells you how bad he was to begin. Up and through May 12th, he had an OPS of just 589 and a WRC plus of just 62 against righties. But since that point, he has done exactly what we thought he would do when the Braves acquired him, and that is crush righties. So again, you get him doing that, you get Lane Thomas to handle the lefties, and that suddenly becomes a really big strength for you in the lineup. And then Matt Olson homered for the 3rd straight game on Sunday as well. He is on a heater. Just make sure nobody's on base, because all he does is hit solo shots. But Matt Olson having a tremendous year for the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Braves have an off day on Monday with the trade deadline. My plan is to go live as the deadline ends, unless there's just a monster move before then. We'll jump on and talk about it after the news breaks. But if not, I'll be back as the trade deadline ends at 6 p.m. Eastern on Monday to talk about everything that the Braves hopefully do at the deadline. And then after that, the Braves will get set to take on the Marlins, who swept the Phillies to really help us out. But then all of a sudden you're like, maybe I need to worry about the Marlins. Coming off a series win against the Mets, a 4-game series win against the Mets. So obviously going to be a tough one for the Atlanta Braves. Marlins playing really good right now. They're 9.5 back of the Braves, and just a 1.5 back of a wild card spot. So they're very much in the mix, but interested to see what they're going to do at the deadline. Are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? How aggressive are they going to be? And are they going to trade Sandy Alcantara? Would they potentially trade them to us? I would certainly love for that to happen. And it's just a 1 game. They're just 1 game back of a wild card spot, and tied with the Padres and just 1 game behind the Phillies. So it's really, really close for them right now for the Marlins. So I can't wait to see what they're going to do and what that series is going to look like. I mean, the Braves essentially just pushed the Nationals out of being buyers, sweeping them in a 4-game series. Could they perhaps, take the Marlins down too? Obviously, it's going to be after the deadline. The pitching matchups for this series, you are going to have Chris Sale. Don't know who's going for the Marlins yet on Tuesday. Then you're going to have Grant Holmes versus Yuri Perez. That's going to be a tough matchup. And then Bryce Elder versus Jansen Junk. So looking for the Braves to hopefully keep their good ways going if they've been doing after the All-Star break, because they do have a really tough stretch coming up after this. I mean, you can include the Marlins in this with the way that they've been playing, but the Braves are about to start a really big stretch against playoff contending teams. So love to see them make some big moves at the deadline, keep that momentum going, and obviously keep racking up the wins on the field. But a great weekend for the Atlanta Braves. Good trade for Lane Thomas. But again, AA has to do more before the deadline. We'll be right here to cover it all for you here at Locked On Braves. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball, the podcast at LockedOn_Braves. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, especially the guys over at MLB Game Night do a fantastic job of recapping games each and every night. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves, and we will talk to you next.